Well, hey all, and welcome back. And today I have a very special review that I've been very excited for. Dr. Wu's Prime Commander from the Extreme Warfare series. Now, these are a small-scale transforming figure that, I mean, obviously it's Optimus Prime, but we have a picture on the back, some Chinese characters. This toy is a small deformation series containing small accessories. Please pay attention. DW-E04. Really don't want to spend a lot of time on the package because I'm not entirely interested in the package, and what's inside is what's most important for me. But anyway, it has an illustration. It's fine. I got mine at the Show Z store, link in description. Some of the things inside the package are the illustration again on a card, which has a very interesting texture, a picture of the toy, some specs, and then poster style instructions. But I don't think we're going to need these so much because it's going to be a fairly simple figure, I think. So anyway, let's go ahead and check him out and see if he's worthy of our collection. And so here he is out of the packaging, and he is an awesome looking little Prime. Now, I have him displayed with his trailer in upright mode, and the reason for that is because the trailer is lacking articulated landing gear. So as far as I can tell, per the instructions and just the way things are molded, it cannot just stand up as a trailer. So it will have to stand like a repair bay. Another thing to notice about the trailer, we have 2 arms stored in there and a weapon. However, we do not have the drone or roller or any of that. So that is a little lacking, but that's still very minimal for what I think we're getting here. Now, one of the most important things that we need to cover is the size of this figure. And so I've got a caliper here, and we can get right about to the top of his head, and it looks like he is 59 to 60 millimeters, which if we switch that to inch, that's 2.4 inches or so, 2.3 inches. So he's a small guy. But that's exactly the reason I'm excited for him, because I was huge into micro machines, and I've always wanted a small transforming Prime that might work with those. But let's go ahead and start off with some comparisons. Here he is with Siege Optimus Prime, which, as you can see, what's the point? Here he is with the THS Optimus Prime, which was a very small, excellently articulated figure. And as we continue to get smaller, here he is with Core Class Optimus Prime. And to keep pushing down for small Optimus Primes, here he is with the world's smallest Optimus Prime. And he is pretty dead on for size with this guy. I mean, there's a little bit of parts that are lower and higher in different areas, but overall, they're pretty much the same size. And now on to articulation. We have, let's see what we have. We have some rotation of the chest. We have shoulder. Shoulder can go out. We have a ball joint on the forearm, so it allows swivel and everything. We have some decently molded hands, however, they cannot hold anything, and we'll look at the weapon for why. You can see that the weapon has a peg system, so it just snaps on there. Some people might not like that. I don't think it's the end of the world, because I'd rather just have decently molded hands that have a giant hole in them, that Hasbro tends to do. Then, of course, we have some hip articulation, goes all the way out. It's a ball joint, so you can see it's pretty flexible. We have a cutout at the back of the leg, so he has a decent knee bend. We have toe articulation, which can tilt. And you can also see how it's kind of curved underneath here, so that tilt actually is a little bit stable rather than just being hard edges. So there's lots thought about that. But there's one other important articulation. I mean, of course, there's the head. But the one important thing is ab crunch. He can ab crunch. I mean, this is a tiny little figure that has just as much articulation as a lot of big ones, if not more in some respects. But yeah, he is pretty awesome for his size, considering all that. It would have been nice to have regular waist articulation in there, but it's understandable that that had to be sacrificed, especially considering how tiny this guy is. But let's go ahead and look at the details of the trailer. So as you can see here, he has a little peg on the weapon so he can store here. We've got 2 arms. And I mean, those are okay. They come off as well. The flaps are articulated, and the trailer closes like so. I mean, it's pretty basic. But it is unmistakably Optimus Prime's trailer. I think even without having the Autobot sticker here, it still looks great. I mean, I love the fact that the doors even pop open like so. A ramp would have been nice, but you know, it's small. I don't know what all is going to fit in there other than maybe world's smallest Bumblebee. But with that said, they've even gone through the trouble of putting the detail. We have the silver back here. We have the red taillights. Let's see if we can get everything back in focus. And then the molded symbols that are on the side. Everything feels nice and crisp. Now, if you want to look at the fifth wheel is a little bit different. And rather than just being a peg, it's a clip and it actually rotates, which will be nice as well. There was a lot of thought gone into this. And even the wheels. Wheels seem like excellent quality. They're not wobbly so much. They spin freely and they look good. So overall, I think the trailer is a nice plus. I think being without it won't be so bad, but the fact that you can convert to robot mode, I think it's definitely a plus to have this here. Now, they just announced yesterday some upcoming figures, and one of those included Roller, so I have a feeling that you'll have to buy some other sets to really complete the trailer. At the price point of around $30, it's not a terrible thing to have to add on, but it would have been nice if it was included. So that is one slight knock. However, I can live with it. But speaking of transformation, let's go ahead and convert the robot. And so we will start with Prime like so. Go ahead and rotate this portion, split the back from there, and then we can fold the wheels down. And we can actually put the arms in place, and that will sort of lock things. And it's so small, I almost feel kind of cumbersome with my big fingers trying to do this. There we go. All right, so we got that there. We can lock the wheel in. I guess it helps if we move the wheel a little bit lower because of the way it locks into the arm. And we lock that, and there we have the cab. The head, turn it around so we can look down. We don't have GUR head mode. And then the legs actually collapse. Snap together. Toes fold down. And then to wrap this up, we just fold these in. And we have our truck mode. And I'll say this about the truck mode, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not perfect. The front, I think, looks excellent. I love the wheels. They roll just as well as the rest of them. I think that looks sharp. The side profile reminds me a lot of MP1 as far as sort of lacking the side window detail and having the big chunky back here. But given the size of this guy, that's totally forgivable. But even so, they've added the molded detail of the stairs coming up and the fuel tank and all that. This is pretty great for the scale. Pretty much the best for what the size is. And we can go ahead and bring the trailer in here. We turn the key sideways, and those places that are clipped on, we just snap it. And we have our Optimus Prime. So let's go ahead and compare him with other things of his scale. And the first of them being the world's smallest Optimus Prime. As you can see, the cab mode of world's smallest is a little bit smaller, as is the back of it being a little slimmer. It does resemble the G1 vehicle much better. However, other than the extra window kind of covering up there, you know, I'm going to have to give it to the new one, because if you look at the front is a little bit nicer on here. This does capture G1 as it should, but it's just not as good overall. Now, probably the ultimate micro scale G1 Optimus Prime would be the PVC series. And as you can see here, the PVC series truly does capture the cartoon look, but is still a little bit bigger than this. And we can go ahead and turn these to the side. And again, the PVC is the best because it is essentially the model from the cartoon, but it is still larger and is not as articulate. And of course, most of all, it does not transform. It is just sort of a statue of the truck mode. Next, I want to bring in a Micro Machine because for me, this is supposed to be my Micro Machine stand-in for Optimus Prime. And of course, it is still a little bit bigger. Actually, it's way out of scale. But I think it will work with the play sets, which is something I want to experiment with when it's all said and done. And then lastly, we have a Micromaster, which is where this fits in scale with. It actually seems a little bit smaller as far as vehicle mode scale goes, but this is where it's going to match. This is the play sets it's going to work with. All these sort of Earthrise battle sets we've been getting and Titan figures and all this, this is where he's going to fit in perfectly as far as a vehicle mode and a robot mode. So now let's go ahead and see how he fits in one of those base modes and see if he really truly is a perfect scale for that. And first off, I want to see how he scales with the Micro Machine playset. Now, I actually picked this playset up for this figure in particular. I had this as a kid and I always loved it, and I recently did a review on it, but I got it for this set. And so I'm going to go ahead and move the camera here. As you can see from the top-down view, he does fit the lanes. He is a little bit long because of the trailer mode. However, if you have a few of these lined up, I think he'd work perfectly. Turning radius is going to be a little bit rough, but as it is in a real semi-truck. But I think he does look pretty great on here. And I think he also works with robot mode very well. As you can see here, his vehicle mode fits perfect. He's fairly well in scale with the Minicons and this whole line from the Earthrise and Siege. And I think that this just has a great play factor. You can build these bases. You can put him on here. He can interact with the other characters. Makes a great display piece, as well as something you just want to mess with. So now in bot mode, this is just awesome. I mean, I even if I didn't buy any other of these, if I didn't buy any of the Decepticons or any other figures, the fact that I have a handful of Minicons and I have these bases, this gives something that is awesome for Prime to interact with. It's so much more. This Prime just has this presence. He really blocky and bulky, but still proportionate enough to where he's agile and can be moved around. I mean, this is a really nicely designed Optimus Prime, especially at this scale. And I just love that I finally have something that's like a playset. I would really love to have a small arc or something to go with these. If I did have the arc that just came out, this would be a perfect figure for that set. I think even more so than the core class. And not only does he look great with the bases, but he looks absolutely awesome with the Titans. It may appear that I'm gushing, but before we wrap this review up, I'd like to talk about, all the pros and cons. We already talked about how he's well articulated, good aesthetic, great paint application, well-built overall figure. But let's talk about some of the cons on the figure. And one of them might be things along the lines of the gaps in the side here where we have the joints able to expand and contract. The main gripe, probably the worst thing about this as a figure, is the upper part of his shoulders. And it's just, there's nothing there. It's not the end of the world, especially if you just don't display him that way. But if you are want to take photography with this and you want to have any shots where he's maybe up against Devastator or something along those lines, that's going to stand out to some. Not the end of the world, but that is probably the largest gripe I have with him. The other gripe being in vehicle mode, we do have the lack of windows here. We actually have mirrors here in part of a window as we did with MP1. And you could probably find a blue decal to put there to give him better windows. However, that is probably his weakest part in truck mode. Lastly would be the trailer. I think the major oversight that I am kind of unhappy about is the fact that you cannot use these to support the trailer as it's parked. You really have to either put it away or use it in base mode or come up with some other solution to help it stand up just because you don't have enough distance here. I would have liked to even had a single flat panel that might have folded down to extend it, just anything that might have been a solution. The other being, and this is minor for me because this is a secondary, this is an accessory, but the lack of a roller and the drone and everything in here, that's going to be a gripe, I think, for many, but I have a feeling that, like I said earlier, there's more stuff coming out like roller that's going to be a solution for that. Now, of course, there is also no Autobot logo here, but I am sure someone can use a Repro label or something along those lines and put it on there. The one thing to note is this is embossed. It is not completely flat. It's not just like a sticker on here, likely painted, which is really nicely. But so note when you do put your sticker on here, it will have lines that press against it. So, just heads up about that. But I really do love this figure. This is definitely one of the top 10 things I bought this year. And it may be simple and maybe silly to some, but this is something that's fulfilling one of my childhood dreams, and that was to have something in line with Micro Machines that is an Optimus Prime. And even if I don't get any more of these, I love it. And I think the true test to how great this is the fact that it makes me want to play with toys. Now, I've been collecting toys for a long time, and as you've seen on this channel, I've displayed things. I really don't mess with them. I'll get a couple of things to fiddle with or be creative with, but my toys sit on a shelf, and this is something that makes me want to have more play sets and things along those lines to mess with and play with on my own and even share with my kids. So anyway, let us know in the comments below if you think this is worthy of your collection. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.